He walked among us, a shadow cloaked in charisma, a monster hiding in plain sight. His name was Ted Bundy, and to many he was the epitome of normalcy. A handsome, intelligent law student, articulate and charming, he possessed an almost magnetic allure. Yet, beneath that meticulously crafted facade lay an abyss of chilling darkness. How does a man who seemingly had everything, intellect, good looks, a promising future, descend into the most brutal depths of serial murder? This isn't just a story about a killer. It's an unsettling exploration of how evil can wear the most beguiling of masks, infiltrating our communities, our trust, and ultimately our sense of safety. Ted Bundy remains an iconic figure in the annals of true crime, his name synonymous with terror and deception. His story continues to haunt and fascinate, a macabre testament to the human capacity for unspeakable acts. But why are we, as a society, so drawn to such darkness? What is it about the mind of a serial killer, especially one as seemingly ordinary as Bundy, that compels our attention, sparking both revulsion and an almost morbid curiosity? Perhaps it's the unsettling realization that evil doesn't always wear a grotesque face. Sometimes it smiles, shakes your hand, and offers help. Born Theodore Robert Cowell, Ted Bundy's early life appeared, on the surface, remarkably unremarkable. Growing up in Tacoma, Washington, he was generally perceived as a well-adjusted, if somewhat reserved, young man. His academic achievements were notable, and he possessed a social charm that allowed him to navigate various circles with ease. He was an avid skier, a responsible student, and even involved in political campaigns, a picture of burgeoning success. There were no overt flashing red lights in his childhood, no dramatic indicators to suggest the monster he would become. In retrospect, some might point to subtle behavioral patterns or a detached quality, but these were often dismissed as quirks of an intelligent, introverted individual. This apparent normalcy, however, was his most powerful weapon, a meticulously constructed sociopathic mask that allowed him to blend seamlessly into society. This concept of the sociopathic mask is crucial to understanding Bundy. It describes the ability of individuals with antisocial personality disorder to present a charming, empathetic, and trustworthy exterior, effectively concealing their true manipulative and predatory nature. Bundy mastered this art, using his intelligence and charisma to disarm his victims and evade suspicion. He wasn't the shadowy figure lurking in alleys. He was the helpful stranger, the injured man needing assistance, the friendly face that inspired trust, not fear. This made him all the more terrifying, for he shattered the conventional image of a criminal, proving that danger could inhabit the most familiar forms. The reign of terror began subtly, with disappearances that initially seemed unrelated. Young women, often strikingly similar in appearance, have vanished from college campuses and public spaces across the Pacific Northwest, Utah, Colorado, Florida. Bundy seemed to move like a phantom, leaving a trail of dread and unanswered questions. His modus operandi was chillingly consistent. He would approach his victims with an air of vulnerability, often feigning an injury or impersonating an authority figure, drawing them into a false sense of security before unleashing unfathomable brutality. The sheer audacity and geographical spread of his crimes baffled law enforcement and ignited a widespread panic. Communities, once feeling secure, were gripped by a pervasive fear, as no one knew who would be next or where the predator would strike. The escalating disappearances and the horrifying realization that a serial killer was operating with such impunity cast a long, dark shadow across the nation. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Born Theodore Robert Cowell, Ted Bundy's early life appeared on the surface remarkably unremarkable. Growing up in Tacoma, Washington, he was generally perceived as a well-adjusted, if somewhat reserved, young man. His academic achievements were notable, and he possessed a social charm that allowed him to navigate various circles with ease. He was an avid skier, a responsible student, and even involved in political campaigns, a picture of burgeoning success. There were no overt, flashing red lights in his childhood, no dramatic indicators to suggest the monster he would become. In retrospect, some might point to subtle behavioral patterns or a detached quality, but these were often dismissed as quirks of an intelligent, introverted individual. This apparent normalcy, however, was his most powerful weapon, a meticulously constructed sociopathic mask that allowed him to blend seamlessly into society. This concept of the sociopathic mask is crucial to understanding Bundy. It describes the ability of individuals with antisocial personality disorder to present a charming, empathetic, and trustworthy exterior, effectively concealing their true manipulative and predatory nature. Bundy mastered this art, using his intelligence and charisma to disarm his victims and evade suspicion. He wasn't the shadowy figure lurking in alleys. He was the helpful stranger, the injured man needing assistance, the friendly face that inspired trust, not fear. This made him all the more terrifying, for he shattered the conventional image of a criminal, proving that danger could inhabit the most familiar forms. The reign of terror began subtly, with disappearances that initially seemed unrelated. Young women, often strikingly similar in appearance, vanished from college campuses and public spaces across the Pacific Northwest. Utah, Colorado, Florida. Bundy seemed to move like a phantom, leaving a trail of dread and unanswered questions. His modus operandi was chillingly consistent. He would approach his victims with an air of vulnerability, often feigning an injury or impersonating an authority figure, drawing them into a false sense of security before unleashing unfathomable brutality. The sheer audacity and geographical spread of his crimes baffled law enforcement and ignited a widespread panic. Communities, once feeling secure, were gripped by a pervasive fear, as no one knew who would be next or where the predator would strike. The escalating disappearances and the horrifying realization that a serial killer was operating with such impunity cast a long, dark shadow across the nation. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Ted Bundy's early years were a study in contrasts. A seemingly unremarkable upbringing that gave no hint of the darkness to come. Born in Burlington, Vermont in 1946, he was initially raised by his grandparents, believing them to be his parents and his mother, Louise Cowell, to be his older sister. This early deception, a foundational lie woven into the fabric of his childhood, has often been cited by psychologists as a potential contributing factor to his later psychological development, fostering a sense of detachment and perhaps an early understanding of manipulation. However, Bundy himself never directly attributed his actions to this familial secret. Later, Ted and his mother moved to Tacoma, Washington, where she married John Bundy, and Ted adopted his stepfather's surname. This new family environment was outwardly conventional, presenting an image of middle-class stability. Ted was an intelligent student, excelling in academics, particularly in subjects that required analytical thinking. He attended the University of Puget Sound and later the University of Washington, where he studied psychology. His academic journey was punctuated by various relationships, most notably with a woman named Stephanie Brooks, whom he dated for several years. This relationship, which ended in 1968, reportedly left Bundy deeply affected, fueling a sense of rejection and resentment that some speculate contributed to his later misogynistic tendencies. Socially, Bundy was a chameleon. He could be charming and engaging, effortlessly winning over acquaintances and romantic interests. He possessed a keen intellect and a captivating conversational style, making him a popular figure in many circles. He even volunteered for political campaigns, demonstrating a capacity for public engagement and a desire to be perceived as a productive member of society. This carefully constructed persona was incredibly effective, allowing him to cultivate an image of trustworthiness and normalcy that few would question. Even those closest to him, like his longtime girlfriend Elizabeth Klopfer, described him as a kind, loving and ambitious man, completely oblivious to the horrific double life he was leading. In retrospect, some biographers and psychologists have searched for early warning signs, subtle cracks in the facade. There were reports of petty theft, voyeurism, and an unusual fascination with violence and true crime literature. But at the time, these were easily dismissed or remained largely unnoticed. The true genius of Bundy's deception lay in his ability to compartmentalize, to maintain a completely separate and hidden world of depravity, while presenting a perfectly integrated and acceptable public self. His ability to switch between these two realities with such seamlessness is a testament to the power of the sociopathic mask, a psychological construct that allows individuals to mimic emotions and behaviors they do not genuinely feel. This mask is not merely a superficial disguise. It is deeply ingrained, a fundamental aspect of their personality structure, enabling them to manipulate and exploit others without remorse. It was this chilling mastery of self-presentation that allowed Ted Bundy to operate undetected for so long, a wolf in sheep's clothing, moving freely among his unsuspecting prey. His seemingly normal upbringing, combined with his innate intelligence and calculated charm, created the perfect storm for the emergence of one of history's most notorious serial killers. The insidious nature of his normalcy was, arguably, his most terrifying characteristic. The true horror began to unfold not as a sudden cataclysm, but as a creeping dread, a series of isolated incidents that, only in retrospect, coalesced into a terrifying pattern. The first confirmed murders and disappearances attributed to Ted Bundy painted a chilling picture of his evolving methodology and escalating depravity. It started subtly, with women vanishing from their everyday lives, leaving behind bewildered families and baffled law enforcement. The Pacific Northwest, once a region of serene beauty, became the silent backdrop for his dark endeavors. His modus operandi quickly became clear, a sinister blend of charm, deception, and unimaginable brutality. Bundy was a predator who hunted in plain sight, using his disarming good looks and seemingly innocuous demeanor to lure his victims. He would often feign an injury, perhaps a broken arm, or pretend to be an authority figure, like a police officer or a firefighter, to gain trust. He might ask for help carrying books to his Volkswagen Beetle, a seemingly innocent request that would quickly turn into a nightmare. Once his victims were isolated and vulnerable, the mask would drop, revealing the monstrous reality beneath. The violence was swift, overwhelming, and utterly devoid of mercy, leaving behind a trail of unspeakable suffering and terror. The geographical spread of his crimes was particularly alarming, showcasing Bundy's nomadic and opportunistic nature. He wasn't confined to a single city or state. His hunting grounds spanned across multiple jurisdictions, making it incredibly difficult for local police forces to connect the dots. From the college campuses of Washington and Oregon, his horrifying spree moved eastward to Utah and Colorado, leaving a wake of despair in each location. The disappearance of 8 young women in the Seattle area between June and November of 1974 sent shivers through the community. Then, in early 1975, the disappearances began anew in Salt Lake City, Utah, with a similar profile. Young, attractive college students, often last seen near their campuses. This unsettling pattern of abductions, often occurring in broad daylight or public spaces, created an atmosphere of pervasive fear. The escalating disappearances and the horrifying realization that a serial killer was operating with such impunity cast a long, dark shadow across the nation. Communities, once feeling secure, were gripped by a pervasive fear, as no one knew who would be next or where the predator would strike. Parents warned their daughters, college campuses issued safety alerts, and a sense of unease settled over everyday life. The media, initially slow to grasp the magnitude of the horror, eventually began to report on the growing number of missing women, fueling the panic. The term Ted, or the co-ed killer, began to circulate, a faceless menace that haunted the collective consciousness. Bundy's ability to operate undetected for so long was a testament to his cunning and the fragmented nature of law enforcement communication at the time. Each state, each county investigated its own missing persons cases, often unaware that similar patterns were emerging hundreds of miles away. This lack of centralized data and interagency cooperation inadvertently provided Bundy with the perfect environment to continue his reign of terror. He moved with a chilling efficiency, leaving minimal forensic evidence and exploiting the very systems designed to protect the public. The realization that one man was responsible for such widespread devastation only intensified the fear, transforming local anxieties into a national nightmare. The innocent trust that once characterized interactions with strangers began to erode, replaced by suspicion and a gnawing sense of vulnerability. This was the dawn of a new kind of fear, one that recognized the potential for evil lurking beneath the most charming exterior. The sheer audacity of his crimes, coupled with his ability to evade capture, created an almost mythical aura around him, a dark legend taking shape in real time. The relentless pursuit by law enforcement, however, was slowly but surely closing in, even amidst the chaos of disjointed investigations. Initial efforts were hampered by the sheer geographical spread of Bundy's crimes and the lack of sophisticated forensic tools available in the 1970s. Detectives in different states struggled to connect the seemingly unrelated disappearances, each working in isolation. Yet a pattern began to emerge. Young, attractive women, often last seen near college campuses, vanishing without a trace. The descriptions of a charming man driving a Volkswagen Beetle, sometimes feigning injury, started to coalesce across state lines, painting a terrifying portrait of a single, elusive predator. It was this meticulous, if initially uncoordinated police work that eventually led to Bundy's first capture. In August 1975, he was pulled over in Granger, Utah, by a state trooper who became suspicious of his erratic driving and the array of tools, including a ski mask, crowbar, and handcuffs found in his car. This seemingly routine traffic stop marked a pivotal moment. Although he wasn't immediately linked to the murders, the discovery of these items, combined with the escalating missing persons reports in the area, raised red flags. He was subsequently arrested for aggravated kidnapping, connected to the abduction of Carol Daronch, who had bravely escaped his clutches earlier that year. This arrest provided law enforcement with a face, a name, and a significant suspect, bringing a temporary halt to his reign of terror. However, Bundy's story is not merely one of capture. It is equally defined by his audacious escapes. His cunning and manipulative nature, hallmarks of his psychopathy, were never more evident than in these desperate bids for freedom. The first escape occurred in June 1977, while he was awaiting trial in Aspen, Colorado, for the murder of Karen Campbell. During a recess at a preliminary hearing, Bundy, acting as his own attorney, requested to use the law library. Seizing an opportunity, he jumped from a second-story window of the courthouse and vanished into the surrounding wilderness. The entire community was thrown into a panic, and a massive manhunt ensued. For 3 days, he eluded capture, sparking widespread fear and demonstrating an unnerving resourcefulness. He was eventually apprehended after getting lost and disoriented, but the incident highlighted his dangerous capacity for evasion. His second escape, even more audacious, came 6 months later. Transferred to a county jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado on December 30, 1977, Bundy meticulously planned his next move. He sawed a hole in the ceiling of his cell, climbed into the ventilation system, and dropped into the apartment of a sleeping jailer. He then walked out the front door, once again disappearing into the night. This escape was an even greater blow to public confidence and law enforcement's credibility. The fact that such a high-profile serial killer could escape twice, seemingly at will, sent shockwaves across the nation. The impact of these escapes was profound. Public perception of law enforcement shifted from hopeful to deeply concerned, even critical. How could such a dangerous individual repeatedly slip through their grasp? The fear he instilled was amplified, knowing he was once again at large, a phantom menace free to strike again. For police efforts, it meant a redoubled, desperate hunt, often under intense public scrutiny and pressure. These escapes not only prolonged his ability to commit further atrocities, but also cemented his image as a master manipulator, a criminal mastermind who constantly outwitted the authorities. Bundy's cunning extended beyond physical escape. During these periods of freedom, he demonstrated an extraordinary ability to blend in, adopt new personas, and continue his predatory activities. He journeyed to Florida after his second escape, a new hunting ground where his identity was initially unknown, allowing him to resume his horrific spree with devastating consequences. His ability to charm and deceive remained intact, even under the immense pressure of being a wanted man. He was a chameleon, adapting to his surroundings, always seeking the next opportunity to fulfill his dark desires. These escapes were not just breaks from confinement, they were grim exhibitions of his relentless will to evade justice and continue his horrific pattern, showcasing a chilling determination that would ultimately lead to more victims and further cement his place in the annals of true crime infamy. The cat-and-mouse game between Bundy and law enforcement was far from over. In fact, it was about to reach its most dramatic and publicized phase. The cat-and-mouse game between Bundy and law enforcement was far from over. In fact, it was about to reach its most dramatic and publicized phase. It was in Florida that Ted Bundy, after his final audacious escape, would finally face the full weight of the justice system in a series of trials that captivated the nation and forever etched his name into the dark tapestry of criminal history. The Sunshine State, initially a haven for his renewed predatory activities, ultimately became the stage for his downfall. His arrival in Florida marked a terrifying new chapter. After months of evading authorities, living under assumed identities, and committing further heinous acts, Bundy's luck began to run out. The sheer brutality of the crimes committed in Florida, particularly the Chi Omega sorority house murders and the attack on Cheryl Thomas, left an indelible mark on the public consciousness. These acts, characterized by extreme violence, shocked even hardened investigators and galvanized law enforcement into an unprecedented pursuit. The pressure on the authorities to apprehend this elusive and increasingly vicious killer was immense. Finally, in February 1978, a vigilant patrolman in Pensacola, Florida, recognized Bundy's stolen vehicle. This time, there would be no escape. Ted Bundy was once again in custody, but this arrest was different. The mounting evidence, the growing list of victims, and the sheer scale of his crimes meant that this time the legal battle would be protracted, intense, and inescapably public. The trials that followed were not just legal proceedings. They were a spectacle, a chilling exposé of evil, and a testament to the resilience of those who sought justice. The most prominent of these was the trial for the Chi Omega murders, which began in Miami in June 1979. From the outset, it was clear this would be no ordinary trial. Bundy, ever the showman, made the astonishing decision to act as his own lawyer. This move, driven by his arrogance and an inflated sense of his own intellect, transformed the courtroom into his personal stage. He cross-examined witnesses, including some of his own victims, with a chilling detachment and a perverse charm that fluctuated between manipulative sincerity and thinly veiled aggression. His intelligence, once an asset in his deceptions, was now on full display in his legal theatrics, confounding both prosecution and defense alike. The media circus surrounding the trials was unprecedented. Television cameras, a relatively new presence in courtrooms, brought the horrifying details directly into American homes. The public was transfixed, both repulsed by Bundy's crimes and morbidly fascinated by the man himself. Every gesture, every word from the defendant was scrutinized. The world watched as prosecutors meticulously pieced together the gruesome puzzle, presenting a mountain of evidence that linked Bundy to the Florida crimes. Key evidence played a crucial role in securing his conviction. Dental impressions taken from bite marks on victim Lisa Levy were a groundbreaking forensic element. These marks, matching Bundy's irregularly shaped teeth, provided irrefutable physical evidence directly connecting him to the brutal attacks. Additionally, eyewitness testimonies, including those from surviving Chi Omega sisters, painted a terrifying picture of the assailant. The courage of these witnesses, reliving their nightmares in open court, was instrumental in dismantling Bundy's carefully constructed facade of innocence. Despite Bundy's attempts to manipulate the proceedings, to charm the jury, and to cast doubt on the prosecution's case, the evidence was overwhelming. His legal strategy, while showcasing his undeniable intelligence, ultimately failed to sway the jury. The sheer weight of scientific proof, combined with compelling personal accounts, left no room for reasonable doubt. On July 24, 1979, after less than 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy, and multiple counts of attempted murder and burglary. The sentencing phase followed, culminating in a death sentence for the Chi Omega murders. A separate trial for the murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, held in Orlando, also resulted in a conviction and another death sentence. These convictions marked the definitive end of Ted Bundy's reign of terror. The world breathed a collective sigh of relief, though the scars left by his monstrous acts would forever remain. The trials were not just about punishing a killer, they were about reasserting the rule of law, about giving a voice to the voiceless, and about confronting the chilling reality that evil can indeed wear a handsome face. With the legal battles concluded and the death sentences pronounced, the focus shifted from the courtroom drama to a deeper, more unsettling question. How could such a man exist? The world grappled with the enigma of Ted Bundy, prompting extensive psychological profiling and endless expert opinions on the dark complexities of his psyche. Psychologists, criminologists, and forensic psychiatrists delved into his past, his behaviors, and his chilling statements, seeking to unravel the threads that wove together to create a serial killer of such notoriety. The prevailing theories centered heavily on the concept of psychopathy, a personality disorder characterized by a lack of empathy, manipulativeness, superficial charm, and a blatant disregard for the rights and feelings of others. Bundy exhibited all these traits in spades. Experts posited that his seemingly normal exterior was merely a sophisticated facade, a mask of sanity, as famously described by Hervey Cleckley, behind which lay a cold, calculating predator. This mask allowed him to move through society undetected, exploiting trust and preying on vulnerability with devastating efficiency. The development of his psychopathy remains a subject of intense debate, a classic case study in the nature versus nurture argument. Was Bundy born with a predisposition to such darkness, a genetic anomaly that hardwired him for violence and deceit? Or did environmental factors, perhaps early childhood experiences or perceived slights, twist his development into the monstrous figure he became? While no definitive answer emerged, many psychological profiles highlighted a potential combination of both. Some theories pointed to early signs of antisocial behavior, a detached demeanor, or a history of animal cruelty, though concrete evidence from his childhood was often scarce or disputed by family members who maintained he was a normal, if somewhat private boy. His own statements and interviews from prison offered tantalizing yet often misleading glimpses into his mind. Bundy, ever the manipulator, continued to play games even from behind bars. He would sometimes speak with a chilling academic detachment about the psychology of serial killers, often using the third person, almost as if discussing a separate entity rather than reflecting on his own actions. He offered insights, sometimes profound, sometimes utterly self-serving, on the motivations and methods of individuals like himself. He spoke of the urge and the fantasy that drove the crimes, detailing how it escalated over time, becoming an insatiable hunger. However, the reliability of these statements was always questionable. Was he genuinely attempting to contribute to the understanding of criminal psychology, or was he merely seeking to maintain control, to prolong his moment in the spotlight, to manipulate his interviewers as he had manipulated so many others? Many experts believed it was the latter, that his confessions and analyses were carefully curated performances designed to shape his legacy, to present himself as something more complex than a simple murderer. He confessed to dozens of murders, some of which were never independently corroborated, leading to speculation that he exaggerated his victim count to inflate his own macabre importance. The discourse around Bundy also illuminated the disturbing phenomenon of hybristophilia, a paraphilia in which an individual is sexually aroused by or attracted to those who commit atrocities. The scores of women who wrote to Bundy in prison, some even proposing marriage, underscored the perverse fascination he continued to exert even after his true nature was fully exposed. This added another layer to the complex psychological landscape surrounding him, demonstrating the profound societal impact of his charisma, even when wielded for evil. Ultimately, understanding Ted Bundy's mind became a crucial, albeit inconclusive, endeavor. His case forced the psychological community to confront the darkest corners of human behavior, refining their tools for profiling and attempting to identify the warning signs of extreme psychopathy. While no single theory could fully explain the genesis of his evil, the relentless pursuit of answers underscored a fundamental human need to comprehend the incomprehensible, to learn from tragedy, and to prevent such horrors from recurring. The debate over nature versus nurture in the making of a serial killer continued, with Bundy's life serving as a stark, unsettling case study at its very heart. The legacy of Ted Bundy extends far beyond the confines of his brutal crimes and sensational trials. It has irrevocably shaped criminal justice, psychology, and even popular culture. His case became a watershed moment, forcing a re-evaluation of how society perceives and responds to violent crime. Before Bundy, the concept of a serial killer, especially one who could blend seamlessly into society, was not as widely understood or acknowledged. His existence shattered the illusion that monsters were easily identifiable, prompting a profound shift in investigative techniques and public awareness. In the realm of criminal justice, Bundy's methods and the challenges law enforcement faced in apprehending him led to significant advancements. The interstate nature of his crimes highlighted the urgent need for better communication and data sharing between different police jurisdictions. This spurred the development of more sophisticated criminal databases and profiling techniques, enabling investigators to connect seemingly isolated incidents across state lines. Forensic science also benefited with an increased emphasis on trace evidence, such as hair and fiber analysis, which played a crucial role in securing his convictions. The meticulous collection and preservation of such evidence became standard procedure, inspired in part by the groundbreaking work done in the Bundy cases. The adversarial cat-and-mouse dynamic between Bundy and law enforcement ultimately propelled the latter into a new era of crime fighting. Psychology, too, underwent a critical evolution. Bundy's ability to project an image of normalcy while harboring such profound depravity forced a deeper exploration into psychopathy and antisocial personality disorders. His case became a textbook example, studied by countless students and professionals seeking to understand the darkest corners of the human psyche. The mask of sanity concept, so vividly embodied by Bundy, gained widespread recognition, influencing diagnostic criteria and therapeutic approaches. The enduring debate of nature versus nurture, ignited by his life, continues to inform research into the origins of violent behavior, pushing the boundaries of neuroscience and developmental psychology. In popular culture, Ted Bundy remains an iconic, albeit terrifying figure. His story has been retold countless times through books, documentaries, and films, each attempting to dissect the enigma of his evil. This fascination, while disturbing to some, serves as a grim reminder of the human capacity for deception and brutality. It also prompts introspection about our own vulnerabilities and perceptions. The media circus surrounding his trials cemented his place in history, forever linking his name with the darkest aspects of true crime. The public's enduring interest in Bundy underscores a primal need to understand the forces that threaten societal order, and perhaps to find some measure of control over the incomprehensible. The lessons learned from Ted Bundy's reign of terror are multifaceted and profound. They speak to the critical importance of vigilance, not just in recognizing overt threats, but in questioning the deceptive facades that can conceal profound evil. They emphasize the need for a robust and collaborative justice system capable of adapting to complex criminal patterns. Most importantly, perhaps, they serve as a stark reminder that appearances can be profoundly misleading. A charming smile, an intelligent demeanor, or a seemingly ordinary life can sometimes mask a terrifying void. As we reflect on the chilling narrative of Ted Bundy, we are compelled to engage in critical thinking about the subtle signs of psychopathy and the importance of trusting our instincts. The human brain, with its vast complexities, can produce individuals capable of both immense good and unspeakable evil. Understanding the mechanisms of the latter is not to glorify it, but to arm ourselves with knowledge, to foster empathy, and to build a more resilient society. The story of Ted Bundy is a somber intellectual call to action, urging us to remain ever vigilant, to continuously refine our understanding of human behavior, and to never underestimate the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, even in the most seemingly ordinary of individuals. His legacy, though born of horror, ultimately serves as a stark, cautionary tale, echoing through the annals of criminal history, a perpetual reminder of the shadows that can consume us if we fail to look closely.